night may be long and the dark may be deep, but the answers are there to be found. Whether it's the normal, the abnormal, or the paranormal, you're in the right place. Let's go beyond reality.
Tonight we're going to be talking with Alex Chionetti. He is an explorer and a researcher, and he's explored the treasures and the secrets of the Teos cave system of Ecuador. This is a system of caves that is rumored or reported, depends on how you look at it, to hold unbelievable treasures and wealth. It is a mysterious system of caves that could or may not connect to what is a cave system that connects all of the American continents. This is a pretty interesting topic, and I'm excited to have Alex on the show to talk about it with us when we bring him on. Also, I wanted to announce something that's kind of cool. We're going to start a new feature here on the program. This is going to be a lot of fun, and it's really going to make our ghost and haunting fans very excited. As you well know, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of very, very, at least reportedly very haunted locations around the country. These places are very interesting, even if you look at them beyond the haunt itself. But one of the things that makes them particularly of interest to us is that they have this reputation of being haunted, yet they have a fascinating history. And not enough people talk about both of those things. So we are going to start a new feature, which will be Wednesday nights. It won't start this week. It'll start, and not the following week. It'll start the week after that. So 2 weeks from tomorrow night, we're going to start a new Wednesday night feature called History Behind the Haunt. And our Wednesday night interviews will focus on a location that has a reputation for being haunted. You may have seen some of these locations on some of the paranormal reality shows. And we'll talk about the location with somebody who is either an owner or a tour guide of the location or all of the above, whatever it happens to be. These are the people that know the locations best, and they're going to tell us not just what the reports of hauntings are, but what's the place really about? What was its history? What was a place like Rolling Hills Asylum used for? What are the facts behind the history of a place like Rolling Hills? So that's what we're going to do on Wednesday nights starting in 2 weeks. So looking forward to that feature being part of our regular weekly lineup here on Beyond Reality. In the meantime, one of the best things you can do for us is share out the YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. Go to YouTube, search for JV Johnson. When you find it, subscribe. And if you've already done that for us, share the channel on your social media. Let other people know that there's a great place to go with a lot of great paranormal and conspiracy interviews. Like I've said all along, there's about 500 back episodes of Beyond Reality on the YouTube channel. Plus, we live stream there Monday through Thursday nights, and sometimes Friday nights if we do our companion show, Booze, Brews, and Bros, which we didn't do this last week. But either way, it's a great place to go if you're interested in any of these topics. So share the YouTube page link with your social media friends. That'd be very, very helpful as we continue to spread the word about the program here. And we want more people to know about it for sure. All right, let's go to break, and when we come back, we'll bring our guest in. Alex Chionetti will be here to talk about the Teos cave system of Ecuador. It's going to be a great conversation. Please support the program. Go to patreon.com/Johaw. That's Johaw. Anyway, tonight we're talking with Alex Chionetti. He's an explorer and a researcher. He's actually explored the treasures and secrets of the Teos cave system of Ecuador, and that's what we're going to be talking about. He's also an award-winning journalist. He is an explorer and a filmmaker, and he's a consulting producer for several seasons of Ancient Aliens. He's also had documentaries that have been broadcast on Fox, NBC, A&E, the History Channel, and other international networks. And he's the discoverer of 2 lost cities in the Andean region and a member of the Explorers Club, and he lives near New York City. Alex, welcome to Beyond Reality. It's a real honor to have you with us tonight.
Oh, my pleasure, yeah. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you here, and I just read a list of some of your credentials, and it's an impressive list. But what came first for you? Were you a journalist, a filmmaker, or an explorer, or all of the above?
I have been doing everything together, yeah. As a teenager, I started to explore. I born in South America, Argentina, and I immigrated to the States almost 30 years ago, and I had been traveling the world, and always my curiosity, I define myself of explorer of outer worlds and inner worlds, and not only the scientific or geographical level, but researching mysteries of science and the spirit, we could say, all my life. And yes, I have been a journalist, I have been a newspaperman early, producing television, news for several years, decades, and documentaries. But always, I said, first, exploration. And I explored the Andes, the Amazon, the map of South America, Asia, Europe, and this war and other wars. As you could see my credentials, no? But I try to separate what is physics and metaphysics. And in the subject we are going to talk tonight, sometimes the waters get mixed with the oil.
Yeah. Yeah. You said that you actually started this as a teenager. Where were you living at the time?
I was living in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and in early age, I wrote a book. Well, and I was guide also for a friend who was a really big part of this mystery of the Tajos, and kind of after many years, when I immigrated, I brought the subject with me. I introduced this subject to United States already in the 80s. If the subject was, if I'm not coming to this country, nobody will know this this mystery. But
right.
Now, with recent kind of television shows, what I was part to, the subject gets mass media. But yes, as a teenager, I wrote that book, and that book connected me with the subject of speleology, spelunking. And I tried to do it also as an explorer, chasing the legends of caves who connect South America with North America. And I remember in that in that book, I make so many drawings. Unfortunately, they are not in the first edition, neither in the second edition. I did a re-edition only in the Spanish language this past summer. Yeah, and the book is on Amazon now, but only in the Spanish version still. And I draw a map connecting these tunnels running below the Andes and connecting toward the north, connecting South America, Central America, and North America. And with many discoveries, when discovered caves, for example, in Wisconsin, in other states, caverns which are 500, 700 miles long, that hypothesis of my friends, my associates and acquaintances in that period of the late 70s, 80s, start to see the light of the truth.
One of the things that I find very fascinating is that we talk about mysteries all around the world. You know, we frequently talk about the pyramids in Egypt, and we talk about Stonehenge, and we talk about these other places that have these mysterious structures and mysterious histories. And we do talk about South and Central America as well, but not as much. Do you think that the mysteries that are hidden maybe in the forest or in the caves or in the mountains of Central and South America, do you think we have yet to really uncover what's there?
Oh, that you're asking a great question. What I had been meditating on that with the new discovery of LiDAR and the new kind of remote sensing advance with satellite photography and canvassing of the canopy of the forest. Still we don't really kind of see, or we could reconstruct the past. Is so much still for discovering, but no matter you could detect formations of lost cities in Central America, cities also in Asia, in Cambodia, etc. And still, we were going to take hundreds of years to kind of clean that areas to see really what was this kind of a spread of cultures and the connection with with many other search for resolve mysteries who connect the past with the present. Oh yeah, it's so much to see it. I think I am an old-fashioned explorer. No, I prefer to go on the ground, and no matter the new archaeologists, the new explorers are sitting in front of the computer connected with the satellite inside of very restricted areas of universities or private companies, and I think that is not the only way to go to resolve the riddles of the past. For example, there are so many lost cities along the coast of Peru and Ecuador you don't imagine. Below the sun, below the forest, below the high road of the jungle, and with ceramics, with bones, with pieces of different type of structures and plazas and squares and tombs with metals, tombs with kind of also pieces, relics, which are not really part of, for example, of South America, proving the war 10,000, 15 years ago they have many advanced cultures, and they travel as crazy. As I always said, Columbus was the last one, and there were so much navigation and transit by the ground and by the waters with the currents of Atlantic and Pacific.
Let's the cave system we're talking about. I said Teos. How do you pronounce it? Because you've pronounced it differently. Tajos.
Yes, Eayos.
And the Y in
and Tajos are birds. No, the stems, but Tajos in Spanish with double L is kind of a stem, of a plant. No, it's a kind of a part of the plant.
Right. So, what point did this particular cave system become known to you and of interest to you?
Well, the Tajos caves, I had been insisting as a system of caves, but through the years, from the 70s and to the 80s, before I brought the subject to the States, first through articles and after to some kind of early television programs, they thought was one. The cave get famous through a book, Erich von Daniken book of 1974 or 73, I don't remember exactly, but before that, the public and all the public opinion never knew about this. And this book attracted the attention of a Scottish engineer, Stanley Hall, the late Stanley Hall, who was my friend until his death, and Hall organized an expedition who was the biggest expedition in the history of the speleology in 1976, after the claims of a Hungarian-Argentinian explorer and prospector, and we could say gold digger too, and who was associated with a friend of mine, Julio Goyen Aguado, who is the connection with the story. I am one of the last links with this original story, but Julio, my friend Julio Goyen, sent Morix to Ecuador in the early mid-60s, and Morix is one who rediscovered the cave, and he organized an expedition in 1969 with the support of the tourist office of Ecuador, his lawyer, a kind of an eclectic group of professional scientists and militaries, and it's when they saw the first kind of phase of this mystery, what is an underground city who looks like more artificial than natural. And the second stage, before that, with my friend Julio, Morix discovered a chamber in another cave of the system, hundreds of miles of this big cave, who get famous. Why? the cave, one of the protagonists of the largest expedition is Neil Armstrong, the first man
right.
on the moon.
Yeah.
Who also is escorted my friend Julio Goyen Aguado, no? And Julio, when I wrote my first book, he called me to say, I want to know you. Well, you wrote a chapter about my research on the caves. And that is, the story is kind of collateral for many lines. Yeah. Unfortunately, if you see that segment who has been repeating in the program Ancient Aliens, who I was guilty of that, guilty of that segment, as finally I didn't have too much control, but they tell only one part, and the story was part of the Anglo section, not the Latin section. And I am part of the Latin tradition in this case, but as a protagonist of the original story. But again, the cave gets famous through the presence of, first, the bestseller of von Daniken, second, Neil Armstrong. Why the first man on the moon, after 7 years walking on the moon, he wanted to go to dig, he wanted to descend to the deep of the Amazonian range, looking for what? And he said there are so many speculations, as you have been reading online, and there are many distortions too, no? But it's the subject to get to some points of classical speculations. And the caves now is one of the classical mysteries you could line with other ones as the triangle of the Bermuda Triangle, Bigfoot, UFOs, of course, the extraterrestrial connection, and the cultures, other cultures of the world connecting with Incas, pre-Incas, as the Egyptians, and as you remember, the story of Percy Fawcett, who was looking for the lost city of Z, who was a serious prospector of the Royal Geographical Society, who was assigned to the limits between Bolivia and Brazil in the first before the First World War in the 1910s. He was already bringing this kind of interest from Europe to the Americas to look for this rumor, these legends of these megalithic cities born and built in the Amazon, in the beginning or in the end of the Amazon range. And that legend brought him to kind of lose his life in the 1920s with his son and another friend of his son, and they never found him. They never found his rest. But Fawcett was following that, I call the new El Dorado, the new Paititi, no? But we have, again, the crossing of many legends of these mega cities in the middle of the Amazon. And recent kind of debunking and researchers, and you have always the National Geographic trying to kind of debunk the magic elements of this quest. Now, but we have the romantic archaeology. Sometimes it's still killed by this kind of jealousy and competitive drive to make comparisons or diminish what another explorers did in respect.
Tonight we're talking with Alex Chionetti about the Tajos Cave System. He's written a book called Mysteries of the Tajos Caves, The Lost Civilizations Where the Andes Meet the Amazon. Alex, you had mentioned Erich von Daniken kind of brought this to our attention. Now, of course, Erich von Daniken is the same researcher, author that wrote the book Chariot of the Gods, which kind of kicked off the whole, well, maybe didn't kick it off, but it certainly brought to the forefront the discussion about ancient aliens and the fact that we may have had alien visitations early in man's development, which may have aided or in some way even genetically changed the course of our history. Did von Daniken mention these caves in Chariot of the Gods, or was this separate work of his?
No. Chariot of the Gods, he wrote it in 1968 and was published and was a bestseller in that time,
right.
68, 69. No, he didn't mention until he traveled to Ecuador. When Janos Morix, this Hungarian Argentinian, make a declaration in 1969 after his first or second expedition to the Tajo system, to the cave called the Cuangos Cave. The Cuangos Cave is the main cave is the cathedral of the system. If you make a comparison with St. Peter and the Vatican and the rest of the churches in Rome, that will be St. Peter will be the bigger cave. But not only for the recent discoveries, for hundreds of years, this area was a pilgrimage of the Jibaro Indians. The Jibaro Indians, now we call Shuar and Shuar Indians. They changed the name, but if you remember, the Jibaros were associated with the shrinking of the heads of the enemies.
That's right, yeah.
And they have that technique to kind of make a reduction of the heads. And only these cultures, these ethnias, are the only ones. In New Guinea is also some aboriginals have similar techniques, only that two parts in the world, no? And the Jibaros, they get fame of that through Hollywood and through the movies in the time of Gene of the Jungle and Tarzan, etc., in the 2030s, and just the anthropologists decide to change to the real name, what is the Shuar. The Shuar Indians live in the area of the Amazon between Ecuador and Peru. So we have the similar kind of groups either. And both on both sides we find Cave of Tajos. Tajos is the name of these oil birds, these kind of birds who are almost a bat. They could see in the dark. They are very kind of amazing navigators
right.
in the darkness using ecosonar. They were originally discovered by von Humboldt, what Humboldt was exploring the Americas, the German explorer. Humboldt and Bonpland discovered the city outside of Caracas, and that was the first cave of Tajos. The species is called Chatornis caripensis, and they are kind of between a dove and a raven, but they're very kind of docile.
But when Erich von Daniken wrote about these caves, he mentioned some pretty fantastic finds, or I don't know if he didn't find these things, but speculated these things were there, like treasures. Where did he get his information? He didn't have any firsthand knowledge of this, did he? Did he see any of this stuff?
Again, we're back to Janos Morix. Morix rediscovered the cave, and he announced, through a kind of publication, as in a notary public in Guayaquil, this list of discoveries he did.
Okay, so he published a list of discoveries,
right? Through with his lawyer, an official thing, and that announcement that announced in the press bring von Daniken to take the plane immediately and go to meet Morix and his lawyer.
So Von Daniken read about this. He decided he needed to investigate it. He got on a plane, flew over. But was he ever able to witness any of those things? If they were just
let me make a step by step. But I think we have time to do it. If not, we get to kind of confuse it, kind of.
We've got about 7 minutes left in this segment, and we can always pick it up on the other side.
I will resume. he arrived to Ecuador. He make a deal, and he started kind of to get information, and they negotiate a kind of Morix was looking for financing with a lawyer. Von Daniken promised $200,000 to do a bigger expedition, and also of the retrieving and being the first to photograph and to film the case with the treasure, with the discovery. Morix and Penny Mateus, they bring Morix to the entrance of a cave, but that cave is near Cuenca, and that is not part of the season of caves, and as a promotional one. In between, Daniken goes to another site in Cuenca too, what is a famous museum then in a basilica and a church of the Father Crespi. Father Crespi is another element of the big mystery here, a Salesian order kind of priest and head of a church who also have a museum. In this museum is depository of many relics and ceramics and many in gold, carving and gold sheets, gold plates. And Von Daniken make a big survey of the site. He took hundreds of pictures. He gets some pictures of Morix, and he create a story. As he doesn't get to an agreement with the Hungarian explorer and neither with the lawyer, he decided to kind of, as he told me, embellish a story. Nobody knows until I interview Von Daniken. I went to Las Vegas in 1993, and I interviewed in the Ancient Astronaut Convention in that time. And Von Daniken was very interesting to talk when I said I had been friend of the original protagonist of the story. And he told me his version of the story and said, sorry, the only way to sell my story is to embellish, and the only way is to say I descend in the cave and I saw all this treasure. But
Von Daniken said that?
Was a poetic license. Yes, he lies.
Okay.
He lies.
Okay.
Trying to sell and
yeah, and he admitted that to
you.
you.
He sold 20 million books.
Right. Yeah, I know he sold a lot of books.
His book.
Yeah.
Better than to discover a gold cachet in that cave.
and he admitted that to you in an interview, or was it a private conversation?
No, it was an interview.
Wow.
I have it in tape. Yes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I published that interview in the 90s. But I always I have sympathy for Erich, no matter what all the chaos he produced then.
Yeah.
But also, he considered his leg was pulling, and he started to doubt the golden and the metal library was in existence. But
so he despite the fact he embellished his part of the story, did he believe that those things were in there when he wrote the book? He
believed, and he still believes that in some of the caverns the library exists. Yeah.
Do you believe after all of your work that some of those things exist in those caves?
But I don't believe for the testimony of Morix.
Yeah.
I believe for the testimony of my friend Julio Goyan Aguado, who is one of the reasons I endure in this search for the last almost 40 years, and also the reason I wrote the book. And also the reason I did a documentary, but unfortunately it's unfinished, and some people took the concept from my hands a few years ago, and I could tell you later. But
yeah. Did you now? When did you visit the caves?
I did several expeditions.
What was the first?
During the last 10 years.
What was the first time?
The first time?
Yeah.
Was in 2006, and they took me 20-something years. But I have to, as I describe in my book, all the ordeal between wars between Peru and Ecuador, the hostility of the Indians, the bureaucracy between Quito and the jungle, and it had been a kind of
it's difficult, right?
An enduring crusade.
Yeah.
When I spent 6 months in the edge of the jungle surviving, And finally, I conquered what is the Quangos descent. I was the third American who descend to the caves and record in digital the underground structures, and the one I had been perpetuating and kind of exposing the story, with keeping the spirit of exploration, thinking it's a true story of what my friend told me in the late 70s when I visited him, and I continue. He was the sidekick of Morix and the responsible to send him and to converge in the discovery of the two things: the underground world with these structures we cannot explain. It's called the underground city in the Quangos cave, and then also we find similar geological anomalies in the other caves. But also he was the witness. He saw the metal library.
He saw it himself.
José Nahuatl and Morix, they have the experience to descend to the chamber in 1968. Yeah, before the declaration with the notary public 1 year later, and he never really revealed the location, and they protected. But he was also Morix was afraid he was revealing the site to von Daniken, the library was going to be destroyed.
I see.
And the same with the coming expedition, but nobody really give what is called the trust, enough trust, beyond what Morix was very paranoid. And Julio, my friend, in some limits, he didn't really trust too much the modern world, and he was exploring, and both, they die in total poverty. Kind of, they didn't, but they keep what, that is a legacy of the Americas, and is that the content of that also could change the road of history.
Sure. All right. So again, tonight we're talking about the Tajos cave system. Alex Chionetti is our guest tonight. He's done a lot of things. He's an award-winning journalist, an explorer. He's also a filmmaker. He was a consulting producer for several seasons of Ancient Aliens. He's had documentaries broadcast on Fox, on NBC, on A&E, and the History Channel, as well as other international networks. He's also the discoverer of 2 lost cities in the Andean region, and he's a member of the Explorers Club, and he lives near New York City. And Alex, we've been talking about these caves and your first visit to them. Now, when you visited the cave system the first time, did you actually get inside? And if you did, how far into the cave system did you go?
Well, kind of the first expedition was a kind of a failure, but is my team who was part of the Air Force of the Ecuador government, they get afraid by the threats of some Indian Shuar women, and I really suffer after waiting for 25 years. Imagine how I feel. No? I was crying as a kid, and but I capitalized and I detoured the expedition to more easy cave. But coming back to the story of Stanley Hall, who looked for trying to prove also the existence of the metal library, who he said when I conquered the Tajos, he tipped his head, but he knows all the dangers and patience you have to arrive to the target. And Stanley changed his direction, and he said the location of the metal library was in another cave, hundreds of miles of the original one of when he organized the expedition.
Did Stanley?
And I did my first expedition was to his cave, as I call the Pastaza cave.
Did Stanley Hall claim he witnessed those treasures as well?
No,
he never did.
No, but Stanley, he was a science and mystic in the same one. And he think the cave with the experience of Morix was in this area called the Chumbitajo Caverns. And and I went, and when I did some discovery in that area, in some of the areas you have rectangular carvings with gold. I don't know if it's a real spirita or it's a real gold dust. I couldn't do a prospection, but the inscriptions were in the ceiling of the cave, and I said, well, maybe this cave give origin to the legend, including with the Indians and the shamans of the area who used to pilgrimage to harvest the tajos. That is, I was trying to explain the history of the birds, but the birds are very important in the story too. No matter if you separate the natural and the zoology is also an element who connect with the discovery of Morix. So that is the reason in the book I analyze, I dissect, I do this kind of detective work in archaeology and comparative religions, and to try. But it's, I think science and spirit converge in this story. That is a beautiful story. Kind of false or true is a fantastic.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of the 20th century. And I think the people really love the story when I start to kind of see all the layers of these labyrinthic things. But this cave is a fantastic cave. It's a kind of 5 miles long. We don't know the end. They have a spectacular underwater kind of lake communicating with another chambers. I found some formation who look like sculptures. This expedition with I detoured the original one, who was the Quangos. We have a problem was the rain season and was flooding, and when it started to rain, you have to escape, that was I have to do 2 consecutive expeditions, in and out. But the first one, we have to leave the main caverns, the main tunnels, after the flooding, no, and I have to protect the cameras and the helmets, and we have to do an evacuation with these special forces I told you of the Air Force, who didn't want to cross to the other side. But now it's easy. Now it's easy after all the calamities I passed. In a few years now, it's more kind of it's an scholastic tour for many. But coming back to the cave, yes, and Stanley think in this chamber going under the river, you could have access. But Stanley follow after the death of Morris, he get deceptioned, and he back to an original story, who was between the 40s and the 50s, what the military guy said he also witnessed the chamber of the metal library.
He also witnessed it. Has anybody who claims to have seen these treasures, whether it's the metal library or other treasures, been able to bring something out of the caves to prove it, or offer some type of photographic evidence?
Yes, no, it's a lot of evidence of some of the plates. Some of the plates are in Argentina, Buenos Aires, with Julio retrieved some, and also Morix in that time sent it to him, as they were close friends and Galmo's brothers. And amazingly, he sent it by regular mail, one of the places. Right, and believe or not. But also had been, as I said, and another researchers agree, there was a confusion with the Father Crespi collection. But, we have, similar to the Mormon story of Joseph Smith, who showed to his close circle when he was translating the metal plates, and they come from a supernatural kind of origin. In the case, that case was more angelic and intervention, no, in the 1830s, in the Cumorah Hills in upstate New York, no? Yeah, if you know.
That's right, of course, yeah.
Elmira, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that is another layer of the Mormon connection, which is one of the chapters in my book, and they brought me to another research of several years, the comparative things, no? But still, we know in the Americas there are legends of these libraries in metal, and it's not the only one. We have these kind of legends along the Andes, no, with previous civilizations left records before the flood of the previous cultures and they left it in form of kind of manuscript, papyrus, or kind of lithical libraries, carvings in rocks and carvings in metal, no, in golden metal, gold or silver or different type of kind of precious or common, ordinary metals.
Yeah, I have to ask, though, about the cave system itself. I noted that you have said that this could be part of a larger cave system that extends from South America up to North America, under the Rockies, and maybe even further. Is that your theory, or have other people posit that as well?
No. As researching as teenager, I get conclusions independent of discover later. Other people were talking about that.
Okay.
Yeah, was not only myself. No.
But do you believe that to be true?
Before and after me had been other.
Do you believe that to be true? That this system is part of a larger system that basically spans 3 continents?
I think yes. The Earth have a lot of kind of structures, and they have also structures who have been carved in artificial means.
Yeah.
In the past, so kind of, I don't know what kind of drilling machines, but we have enough evidence was a lost technology.
Yeah, you've also...
and we have the origin of the cultures. For example, the Inca cultures come from a cave, and they came also from a cave in the middle of the lake, and also in one center. I did an expedition to look. Pacaritambo is the place south of Cusco where you have the center of the legends converge with lines, kind of the sacred lines. Not only we're not talking about the Nazca lines, but kind of magnetic lines which connect ceremonial centers. And in the ancient times, they traced these lines, and these lines were not only connected with the importance of to have water and tunnels with water, but also with ceremonial centers on the ground and also in altitude. Yeah, and yes, there are many places in the world whose legends support the existence of cultures who went down.
Mm-hmm. You've also talked about the fact that the Tajos Caves could have something to do or have a connection to Atlantis, hollow Earth theory, ancient aliens. Let's talk a little bit about each of those. Let's talk about hollow Earth first. And you've touched on some of these ideas already in our conversation. But do you think that this might be one of the entrances to what might be considered an underground civilization that people talk about when they talk about hollow Earth theory?
Oh, yeah, the hollow Earth theory was developed in the turn of the 19th century, and it started with science fiction more. And but science fiction sometimes is a kind of a big, we could say, is a foretelling, a true discovery or reality. And yeah, the hollow Earth talk also about an entrance in the poles, North Pole and South Pole, but
right.
we never really have that kind of evidence of that photos they were took. I don't know what decade, 60s, 70s, and the description of Byrd, Admiral Byrd, and there were a lot of apocrypha testimonies, no? But we have tales of travelers who get lost, and they have an ordeal to go deep in subterranean structures, and they found life, and they found human life, and they found structures and pyramidal structures. But I follow many of these legends from Mexico to Tierra del Fuego, and I kind of bite the dust sometimes and with goose chases. For example, in Mexico, I follow the hypothesis of one giant cave who have a pyramid inside, and the person who's supposed to bring me there, he never show up in the appointment to do the expedition. We were ready, but in the same in the Andes, we have these lines of theories, but sometimes the witness, they don't show up or they cannot prove it, and there are many legends of we found an open pit with the steps going down. But when we back to the place, the site was totally closed, and they call the Salamancas. The Salamancas, and that connect with the Spanish gold and with indigenous and folkloric myths and legends, But for me, the legends sometimes are based in folk tales are based in reality, And again, if we're talking about the different parallel dimensions, as there are above, there are below, and we could apply to the subterranean worlds, And that is some of the explanation of the metal library. Is a kind of an experience, is in another kind of state of consciousness who bring you to experiment an open vortex. And that was one of the conclusions Stanley Hall had with this second cave, who was the first part of my two first expeditions we were telling before. And before I did the third expedition and a consecutive exploring the other caves of the system. But the Taltos, there are also these beings who live underground, and they develop also a technology to kind of construct below and to communicate. And there are some videos of a strange formation. People who were visiting the caves, they found people dressed in white. For example, one of the original guys of the 60s, he said he put the camera and suddenly he saw a person dressed in white walking in some of the chambers, some of the rooms or galleries of the caves. And he said nobody was there. Also, they found steps, kind of a lot of kind of traces of human tracks going nowhere and coming nowhere, and barefoot kind of footprints.
Wow.
And that kind of.
So what's next here?
But the people also, perceive different type of intelligences and the condensation of a vapor or kind of a smoke, what is very, very strange. And other people, found they have communication with some entities. I know groups who used to go already since the 80s, 90s, to have experience and to communicate with these kind of inner cities, as they call.
We're going to run out of time here, but what's next? I mean, obviously this is very controversial in some circles. Are you planning any further expeditions? Do you have more work to do? What's next for this project?
I have a lot of work with this. I really, with some friend of mine who are local Ecuadorians, and they don't really follow my advice, and I have to go in person back. Yes, I'm trying to set a new expedition to the area using new technologies, and also to explore some caverns of the system which never were explored since the time, as there are more than 100 Tajos caves in the system.
Oh, wow.
And we know only 3.
Oh, wow, yeah.
3 main ones. We have a lot of work, and also to prove all these kind of theories. Every time you go, you have a different experience. And as I said, the cave, the main cave, looks like it's alive. It's an organism. It's a kind of it's a part of Gaia, no? And it's but beyond the sounds of the birds who produce this kind of altered state of consciousness, they have marvelous things. And no matter it was a scientific expedition with a lot of disciplines, still we don't know nothing about the biology of the birds. We know a little bit about all the species of spiders, on the different species of bats, and still for many years I was trying to convince the Smithsonian and National Geographic to follow me, but totally ignoring. They ignore me, and they said, "Oh, but the cave is not famous." Yes, it's one of the largest fascinating caves, but I only received kind of silence, but I didn't really give up. Also, I tried to prove what my friend Julio Goyen witnessed. I think he have a real experience, and if it's in the physical or extra-physical level, that place as a kind of ancient Andean Shangri-La or Lost Horizon is there, and it's maybe that place open once in a while, no?
Well, was your life threatened in the third expedition?
The what?
Was your life threatened in the third?
No. My former wife was in this. I almost lost my life.
Yeah.
In my third expedition, and the same moment I was. My party, we were kind of surrendered by these renegade drunk Shuar Indians who come to kill us.
Oh boy!
They didn't like our guide. My former guy, I discovered later, he affected me 2 expeditions, but and I trust him, but I give a second opportunity, and he abandoned me in the middle of the jungle. And the same with the first division of the Special Forces of the Air Force too. They left me behind, and also my television crew left me behind. And I continue. I have to reorganize, and my last team, who also were the Special Forces, who trained me, with the Special Forces of the police, of the SWAT from there, also they want to leave me. But finally, we get the permissions. I have to trade, and I have to my generator who illuminate the cave, but in that time was a few years ago, was not still this new system we have to illuminate. I have to bring a generator to really illuminate the cave. Will have this anomalous structure who looks like a gate or a threshold of a door, no, with bricks and corner stones, as you could read in my book, and we were kind of in the living. We were ambushed. They kind of kidnapped my head of guides, and finally released it. But in the night they returned, and I decided to don't use any of the weapons, and let's escape in the middle of the night. And the early morning we escaped, and where we were chasing, and the whole time I lost big part of the equipment and my recordings, my video, some of things. But I said they were going to kind of spear us, and that I have all the list of the people, but I forgive that, no matter they affect me. But but in the same time, my former wife was praying for me in a church, and in front of the Virgin, who was stepping the serpent with her feet.
Wow. Yeah. I also think that the system was featured on, was it Expedition Unknown, Josh Gates' show?
Yeah, that was another disappointment, but I designed that concept, and he copied my idea, but I produced several segments for his previous show, Destination Truth.
Yeah.
And I consider him a friend, and when I met him in the Explorers Club, also I inducted him to be member of the Explorers Club. That was a decade ago. And after I worked with him, we were supposed to go to Tajos, and I also presented to the Travel Channel several times, and they ran with my concept. And he went for himself, and he only covered one aspect. And
so you've got another expedition you're trying to put together and learn more about these caves. Do you have an idea when that might happen?
I hope it will happen this year, yes.
This year.
Trying to, back, and I have some American speleologists to go with me, and also the family of a famous astronaut. It's interesting to be also scored for see what their father saw in 76. I hope I know good, and I hope I could put together, but I have some ideas. And back to the places I have the experience, and I record this kind of golden frames who are connected with the story. But also there are two caves that nobody went, and maybe it's the really chosen territory.
Right, right. Well,
but I recommend if the people want to know this story with deep, read my book. Yeah.
Right. Where can people buy the book, Alex?
Oh, it's in the websites of Inner Traditions, Barnes and Noble, Simon and Schuster websites, and and Amazon, of course. Amazon is the big river.
Right, exactly. All right, well, promise that when you, after you take your next expedition, if you learn more and you've got some more to share, that you'll come back and do that with us. In the meantime, people know where they can get a hold of the book, and we thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, my pleasure.
Beyond Reality Paranormal is hosted by J.V. Johnson and produced by Orion Palmer and Slick Eddie Edwards. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please consider supporting the program either through your podcast platform, click on the link in the description, or on Patreon at Joha Productions. If you'd like to be a guest on Beyond Reality Paranormal, or you have a recommendation for a guest, contact our producer, Slick Eddie Edwards. Eddie is spelled with a Y at slickeddieedwards@gmail.com.